everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are here with the French American Chamber of Commerce Rocky Mountain chapter, and today we'll be discussing AI in action, real-world applications across industries. And we are a Rocky Mountain regional chapter for the French American Chamber of Commerce. My name is Sasha Francois, and I am the executive director here. In fact, across industries today, but also across states. We have 3 states that are most active within our chamber, Colorado, Arizona, and Utah, but we also cover Wyoming and New Mexico. And it's just such an exciting time here. In fact, we would love to invite all of you to be a member, just like our incredible panelists today. They are all members of the French American Chamber of Commerce, and you are in for a treat today. I just want to give a quick announcement about some events coming up in Colorado. If you are joining us from Colorado, we have a blind wine tasting with the Italian American Chamber and French American Chamber next week on Thursday. So join us for that. In Arizona, we have on May 20th a breakfast happening, so join us for that as well. And then in Utah, save the date, Wednesday, August 27th, we have our early bird tickets on sale for a major event at the Capitol in Utah. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator for today. She is an incredible business leader, used to work at the French American Chamber of Commerce in New York City. This is Sophia, and she's with Lexicon Lens. Welcome, Sophia. Thank you so much for moderating today, and we're looking forward to a great panel.
Oh, I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you, Sasha. Welcome, everyone. We are in the gold rush of AI, and it's impacting our lives on every level, both personally and professionally. And while none of us has a crystal ball to tell us exactly what's next, we are all searching to understand what it means for us right now. Here are some quick facts that I pulled from the AI 2026 Index. This technology has reached mass adoption faster than the personal computer or internet. Generative AI hit nearly 53% population level adoption within 3 years. Leading AI companies are reaching meaningful revenue scale in a fraction of the time that it took previous technology generations. Global corporate investment has more than doubled in 2025, and organizational adoption rose 88%, and early estimates are suggesting that the customer value of generative AI has grown substantially within a year. So most panels focus on the future state, but today we are firmly grounded in the present. We're going to look at what AI actually is, how to build it into your workflow, and critically how to navigate the legal landmines that come with it. And before we dive in today, we want to hear from you. We have 2 polls that we are opening within this platform. If you go to interactions, you will see the first poll that is open right now. So head there and let us know how you are feeling about AI today. I am joined today by 3 esteemed colleagues and innovators in the AI space. Mathilde Fiavet, PhD, Innovation Fellow at Breakthrough Energy and Senior Development Engineer at Beyond Silicon. Franck Nanier, Founder and Principal of the Talisman Group. And Franck Giaoui, PhD and Founder and President of Optimalex and lecturer at ASU's College of Law. Welcome to all 3 of you. So let's get started. I'd like each of our panelists to briefly describe their work. Mathilde, let's start with you. I can't hear you, Mathilde.
Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me now? My name is Mathilde Fiavet, and thanks, Sophia and Sasha, for inviting me for today. I'm originally from Suresnes in France, a beautiful city on the opposite side of the Seine River in Paris. I moved in California in 2021, and now I have been based in Phoenix for 2 years. My background is in chemical engineering and material science. So during my PhD, I pioneered a new way of printing semiconductors to make solar panels out of it. And currently at Beyond Silicon, we are applying the same method to make solar cells. So we are applying it on silicon wafers. And those super solar cells with the double materials get a boost of efficiency, a boost of power by 30%. I really enjoy operating at this intersection between R&D and manufacturing, and I'm usually involved in scale-up phases in startups in solar energy, where uncertainty is really high, and we have aggressive timeline and limited resources. So in many ways, it's an optimization game. And this is where my AI journey started. AI can be used for different energy systems to predict performance, for example, of wind turbines, which is the first way I was introduced to machine learning. And today, I think the accessibility of AI is enabling so much more for people, engineers, without any software background like me, to automate their tasks, accelerate the data analysis, improve the quality control on production lines, and support better decision-making with more data. So for me, AI is not a gadget anymore. It's an accelerator for both operations and decision-making. And I can speak to the startup environment and the solar industry today. But if I can do it, everyone here can also do it. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to the discussions.
It's great to have you, Mathilde, and I really look forward to hearing about how you've operationalized it across your business. Let's move to Franck Nanier. Hello.
Hi, Sophia. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Franck Nanier. I'm the founder and principal of the Talisman Group. We offer fractional CDO services for companies who understand that data is a must. Data strategy is a must in the era of AI, but may not have, the budgets to pay for a full-blown CDO. What we come in play for is really data governance, right? Helping companies throughout the digital transformation, or enterprise scale data program management per se. I'm here today because everybody's talking about AI, but AI is only as good as the data that feeds it, right? So my job is to try and make sure that the foundation doesn't fail now that it matters more than ever. AI needs trusted data. Otherwise, like I like to say, it's garbage in, garbage out. We're trying to make it clean and help those companies understand the cost that there is to not do anything to get their ducks in order. That's us in a nutshell.
Nanier, you're right. There's no stopping this, and we all need to be engaged with it. Franck Giaoui, let's turn to you.
Yeah, for this introduction, and thank you, Sasha, for having us today. My background is more than 30 years in business and about 15 years in academia. In business, most of my focus has been both as a consultant, as an entrepreneur in finance and technologies, mostly in Europe, of course, France, Italy, the UK, and more recently in the US. In academia, I was actually a PhD student at La Sorbonne before resettling in New York in 2015 at Columbia Law School, and more recently, 2 years ago in Scottsdale, close Phoenix, and I'm also a lecturer at ASU. So both my research and entrepreneurship is at the intersection of finance and technology and the law and economics of the same. I came actually to AI by a very personal story, which is actually unfortunate. I was a victim of an accident more than 15 years ago. At that time, I was not a lawyer, but I realized that when the loss that you have is difficult to quantify, it's also difficult to get indemnified. And so essentially, I lost everything in this accident. And I started to ask myself how to improve the situation. And I realized, going back to school, to law school at that time, that law is done such that damages are a question of fact. So essentially the judge or the court are completely free and sovereign to decide what type of compensation they should grant based on the fact that they read, the fact that they see. So there is no real theory behind that. Intellectually, I didn't find that very satisfactory. So I started to research on damages compensation. And this is how my journey with AI started. I accumulated manually data, and then with more assistance from engineering, natural language processing, collecting data on damages, and finally identified patterns. And when you identify patterns, this is the beginning of AI, because you have new incoming data that are not known. They are compared to the patterns, and then you can predict and you can improve the future, in essence. So that is my background, and I guess an introduction to AI too.
I look forward to knowing more about how this intersection between your background and your experience has led to your business. Before we get started with the first question, I want to point to the results in the poll. So we asked you what your primary feeling about AI was right now, and 27% of you say that you feel confident. None of you say that you're not using it. 45% of you are curious. 27% are kind of afraid, and 18% of you are fully engaged. So we have a really nice backdrop here, panelists, of where our audience is living in the AI space and the level of curiosity and questions they may have about it. So with that said, Franck Giaoui, let's turn to you first. Let's start with the basics for those in the room who are trying to separate what we see as hype in the media and what is really the reality of AI. What is AI and what is it for?
Yeah, thank you, Sophia. I think it's a good way to start. So AI is not only ChatGPT. Everybody has heard about ChatGPT. It's not even only generative AI or large language modeling like ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini, or others. I don't want to have any publicity for anyone. It's much broader. And there are many technologies behind that. Some are of natural language processing, some machine learning. I think Mathilde mentioned one of them. More recently, agentic AI. What is important to understand is really the use cases. At the core, AI is really essentially a software, any kind of software that learns from known data, recognizes pattern, and hence make prediction on new scenario. It's not magic, it's just probabilistic. So let's take two major examples. One, I would call that the productivity tool. It's a workflow automation. You are doing manual tasks as a business person, as well as an individual person, and you can automate those tasks. I want to give you an example in our own business. Optimalex focuses in AI for the healthcare industry, insurance industries, and the legal industries. So in healthcare, for instance, you have what we call medical chronology. Medical chronology has to be built based on medical records. And with electronic medical records, now hospitals have hundreds of pages, maybe thousands of pages. And when you have a case to study as a lawyer, as a doctor, you can, of course, do that manually. You can summarize all those pages manually, and it takes, let's say, 10 hours. Or you can use AI and you automate this process of medical chronology. It takes 3 minutes. Now, of course, it's not necessarily a 10 hours time save, because we always advise our clients to review the result, but it's at least 9 hours time saved. That is just manual tasks that are saved, and you focus your time on more value creation. More value creation is taking decisions. And this is the other use case of AI, the decision support, or you can call it also the intelligent assistant. And here we are in a situation where, for instance, you have MRI to analyze lung images, okay? And it has been proved that, of course, you can do that manually, and you can take decision on what is your experience, but you can also use AI with much better accuracy, and you can have a better decision earlier. In our industry, again, any day saved on a damage compensation is $1,000 saved. So essentially, when a claim arrives to an insurance industry or a healthcare provider, and they are waiting for the right data to make a decision, every day they are waiting for the data. Every day before they take the right decision costs $1,000. So you can imagine in a large insurance carriers or healthcare companies, when you have hundreds of claims or thousands of claims every year, that is a lot of money. Timely, consistent, and more accurate decisions reduce loss and increase revenue. So those are the two major use cases, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you, Franck. Franck Giaoui, Franck Nanier, let's turn to you. What do I need to be thinking or asking myself before I launch AI? You are muted, Franck.
Can you hear me? I was speaking to
Yes.
myself. I think it's a perfect segue to what Franck was saying, right? Number one, have clarity with what is happening. Professor Giaoui really clarified those two branches, right? What are you using AI for? Are you trying to automate something, or are you trying to create a better decision support system or model? So you need to answer that question. I like checklists. They help me to stay in line, right, and make sure I don't forget anything. So that would be number one. Once you do that, you need to classify your data. This is critical. This is absolutely important for a data practitioner like me, right? You cannot just take any type of data and feed it into some engine and expect magic to happen, right? Data classification is a must, right? Mm-hmm. You need to have clarity about the policies that surround the data that you're using, especially the data that you do not own. That would be data from your vendors, for example, right? You need to have clarity about the regulatory environment, right? I know it's scary, but it is here. It's important. So you need to come to terms with what reality is so that you can insulate yourself against risks that are totally avoidable, right? Mm-hmm. It is also important to have some type of baseline in terms of governance. We're starting. A lot of things needs to be done, but you need a minimum, right? And also you need to have some type of idea of what kind of return of investment you're expecting. Lastly, once you do all of that, have also an assignment of who's going to own, everything that you're going to do when it comes to AI. Ownership is absolutely critical because it helps you basically reverse engineering processes when there's an issue. So that I would say.
Thank you. Franck Giaoui, very quickly, are there costs if a business owner does not implement AI right now?
Yeah, the costs are really opportunity costs. You lose opportunities to save margin. So I want to take some examples. Let's assume you are managing a wellness practice, about 100 appointments per month. Here, the levers are really reducing the no-shows and getting a faster response. According to the industry reports, no-shows are about 15% of any 15 to 20% of any appointment. So when you use AI-powered automated reminders, SMS, email, even WhatsApp with confirmation requests, this has been proving on this type of practice $6,000 recovered. And this is every year. Of course, it compounds. Faster response when you get AI chatbots that are connected to your website or to your WhatsApp to answer at least the basic questions from your clients or confirm availability, that's another $30,000 impact. So the return on investment, because it's not a major investment, it's probably around $5,000 investment for this kind of practice, is almost 10 times. Again, another example in higher education. Let's assume you have online education with 250 active students, 10 instructors. Here again, the total impact of putting AI to reduce student churn or to save administrative time from the instructor can return your investment 7 times the first year. How does that is done? Just because it is shown that the student are leaving some of the program, not so much because the program is bad, but because they don't have the answer to their question. When is my assignment due? How can I get financial aid? And this kind of questions which are administrative and should not be part of the burden of the instructor. Another example would be on consulting firm, and this is a higher lever, let's say a consulting firm of 10 consultants. Here, faster lead response with AI systems that can acknowledge the inbound request, ask qualifying questions, and schedule a call for the prospect. If you can reduce the response time, which is today on average 24 hours, to 1 hour, it is shown that the result of your conversion can grow from 15% to 20%. And you can do also other kind of application. And this is a huge impact. You know, it can be more than $500,000 every year. And the most important part is it compounds every year. So every saving you do this year can be invested the next year to grow your business. And so the strategic reality is, of course, there is an initial investment. Of course, there is an initial learning, and Frank Nanier will discuss about that more. But the later you come into using those kind of tools, the earlier you let your competitors gaining on the market share. And hence, eventually, you are out of the market. When you are a small business, you cannot have the luxury of that.
Thank you. So Mathilde Fiavet, I'd like to turn to you now and take a look at what is the cost of doing nothing. It seems like that cost is very high, and so we need to pick a starting point. I'm sure that there are many people on this call that are trying to figure out where to start. So let's talk about that fast-moving engineering environment and how you decide which workflow is worth automating first, and how do you measure that?
Yeah, Sophia, that's a great topic. Actually, for us in R&D phase, so we are not yet in the commercial phase, so it's really hard to quantify the opportunity cost in terms of money, but how we quantify it is in terms of productivity bottlenecks. So in our company, we are making solar cells every week, and we are developing new processes. So we were looking at workflows that can be repetitive, time-consuming, and already somehow standardized. It's really hard to start applying AI to a chaos. So we used an example is automating reporting, and we have a weekly operation report, and it was the bottleneck for us, because you could think that the bottleneck is the tools and the technician time to make the solar cells, but the bottleneck is actually sometimes on the decision making. Do you have enough data? Do you have the right data in the right format ready for you to take decision and decide on the next runs? So when I look at the tasks that can be automated, I look at both the tasks that are holding my team back, the bottlenecks, and I also look at the task where AI can be an opportunity for example, what are the tasks you wish someone else would do today, like an assistant, because AI can be your productivity assistant. But for the decision making, it's more about what is the data that we are not currently using for supporting decision making, because it's way too long and time consuming to analyze, because there the AI can also help us have more insights for taking better decisions.
Oh, that's wonderful. So really the workflow that you automated was started by taking a look at what the bottleneck was first. Is that correct? And then from there, analyzing how you would change it and what you would do, and then how you'd measure it. But it wasn't necessarily a financial impact that you looked at. You looked at time, energy, and all of those soft things that are in the background that impact how we work on our own and how we work together. Is that right?
Yes. So a measurable, like a metric that we can use is the learning cycle time. So we wanted to keep it in 1 week between
Oh.
reviewing the data of the last run, deciding of this run, making the sales, reviewing, like, so everything is really agile and fast. And this is my metric, but I know other people in the company are looking at, how much money are we spending every week. So for them, it's monetized. But for me, I'm looking at how much, how can we improve the decision and make more in the given learning cycle time.
So that improves your operations then as well.
Yes, and the success of what we decide to integrate as solutions in the technology. Yeah.
Thank you. Franck Giaoui, the business owner is looking at a checklist. And so what are the first 3 steps that an owner should take a look at to make sure that the implementation goes well?
Yes. So what we usually say to our clients and what we live with our client is half of the effort is in change management, and the second half is in technical and engineering. Everybody jump into the technical and engineering first. I think it's the other way around. So what is the number 1 step? The number 1 step is really to identify your single biggest pain point. You want to start with the low-hanging fruit, and this is where you have identified that you have lost revenues or you are actually losing time, as Mathilde was just describing. This is the number 1 priority. The number 2 is, now that you have identified the pain point, who will be your champion or possibly your champions? Preferably only 1 champion, because when everybody is in charge, nobody's in charge. But it's important, and our experience in our clients is that you always have the rule of the 3 tiers. There is 1 tier of people who will be reluctant. Sometimes it's generational, not always, but sometimes it's generational. Sometimes someone who is close to retiring would imagine that learning AI is difficult, and so why learning before retiring? Let's resist, and I will leave before that. Personally, I think it's short-sighted, but up to each of us to decide. And you have also 1/3 of your team who will be more the pioneers. So of course, the champion should be someone volunteer among the pioneers. When you have the pain point, when you have the champion, now you implement the metrics, exactly like Mathilde mentioned. If you want to implement a good program, you need to measure the progress. On a regular basis, the champion is empowered and also accountable for the results. So you need to know, for instance, if your time is, your objective is to reduce cycle time on claim management, which is what we deliver to our client. Let's say I want to reduce from 4 years to 3 years, 25%. Let's measure exactly the time we save year after year and see how the implementation works. So this you do before you start with the technology, and then you go with the technology. And Franck Nanier mentioned the data. Of course, you want to have clean data. There are some good vendors to do that. You want to have good models, good predictive models, and we develop models with the data. And finally, the IT platform. But again, IT platform or the tool itself is just a consequence of the business case and the business question you ask to yourself.
Thank you for that. So I need to ask myself that business question first. And I know, Franck Nanier, you are going to talk about the governance behind this and how important that is to the process, right?
Yeah, it's critical. I mean, the risk is huge. And again, I love coming after what Franck just said, right? We're talking about really those shadow IT infrastructure, shadow IT softwares, and shadow AI, right? You have people in all enterprise these days because they don't want to miss out. They feed real business data into those models. So it's training somebody else's model. You don't necessarily have any data contract on it, no recourse. You need to slow down and get some governance in place, especially if you are a business. This is serious, right? The exposure is real. We can talk more about that.
Well, thank you for that, Franck Nanier. I want to point people to the poll, and I see some people are responding now. There's a new one that I opened up. What is the biggest barrier preventing you from fulfilling or implementing AI in your workflow today? And while people are going and filling that out, Mathilde Fiavet, I'm going to come back to you. When we're deploying AI in a technical environment, how do you ensure that data reliability and privacy from that starting point, especially when working with sensitive operational data?
Yes, as Frank mentioned, I think data security is key. In our case, as a technology company, we generate a lot of data that is usually linked to IP potential. So it's really important for us that this data is protected. But maybe let me give you an example on what I did for the automation and how the workflow made that it was not fed into the AI directly. So the production workflows that we have, we make a certain number of wafers every week. And we have both images, Excel files of like measurements, for example, the performance of the solar cell at the end, and also a lot of process data. And we also have spreadsheets. I use a lot of Google spreadsheets. And this is probably a personal historical thing. So I was like you and half of the survey here. What tool do I use? How do I automate anything? And at that time, there was only, ChatGPT was one of the first bots outside. So I asked ChatGPT, hey, I have this data, I have that data, and I fed him half of a report. And he said, okay, I can tell this data and then make a graph for you and then save the graph in your server. And then I can take this graph and put it in a PowerPoint for you. Just tell me where you want it. And I told him like, hey, I cannot do this with you. I need to have my own model on my own computer to do this with my own data. So what I ended up doing is asking ChatGPT to make a Python code that basically takes data either on a server, the safe ASU server where we put our process data, makes graph out of the Excel files, and just crop the images for the images or resize them, put everything into a PowerPoint, and then save the PowerPoint wherever I want it to be. And now all of this is just a Python code. And I was really surprised, one, that it works quite well, and I'm not a coder, but two, that I could teach it to my team. And so we were hiring based on who was the most tech savvy, I guess, because you need a certain mindset. But we are using very simple Python interfaces like Jupyter notebooks. And this is how it basically looks like a browser application. And it's very easy to use. So you can just show and train people who've never done this before. And they just click the right information, enter, and the production report is available for us. So my way of going around the privacy was asking with kind of a fake data set what I want to do, refining all of those graphs and everything, making it into a code that basically lies on my computer and is safe. Yeah.
And Franck Nanier, I'm going to go back to you for just a second. That is a process that is locking down data while at the same time optimizing process, right?
Yes, absolutely, right. It's a genius move. It's very creative. But as we move along, we need stronger guardrails. I think Mathilde will agree to that, right? Especially depending on the type of business applications, right? But you have so many different ways to go about it. You just need to sit down and have clarity about the strategy you want to use to make that happen. Yeah.
Thank you. And Franck Giaoui, I'm going back to the list of what people consider if they're going to be implementing AI, and what Mathilde has described as something that is not very complicated. It takes a little bit of setup, right? But it really articulates those 3 steps that you were pointing out to us.
Yes. So you have a question on that? You want me to add on that?
Do you have anything to add to that?
So I think I would like to come back to the governance, and maybe I would love the input of Frank and Mathilde here. For sure, you have to take precaution, particularly if you are in a business that has an impact on employment, on credit or loan, on healthcare or housing. Okay, those are really tricky business and they are highly regulated. However, most of our audience here is probably not concerned directly with those businesses. And even if they are concerned, they are most probably below the threshold. So let's say typically you are a B2B business on a random industry with less than $25 million revenue. You are not managing more than 100,000 consumer records. So you are not impacting on the life of people, on their credit, on their housing, on their employment. Well, in that case, you would not be qualified on sensitive data. And so provided you keep human in the loop, you have no direct impact on individual rights or economic outcomes. You are below the radar of the risk. And I would argue, I don't know who is attending this seminar, but I would argue a majority of people around us in, self-employed entrepreneurs or small, medium-sized business are below the threshold. So while they should always be, mindful about implementing AI, the cost of not implementing AI or delaying is much higher.
Right. Thank you for that. Quickly, I want to go to the polling results. And so the question again is, what was the biggest barrier for you in preventing you from fulfilling or implementing AI into your workflow today? And 14% said that choosing the right tool was a big issue. Security concerns are at 29%. Cost of time and money, 13%. And don't know where to start is the largest at 50%. So before maybe we go to that as a last question for all of you, I want to go to you, Franck Nanier. If someone in the room realized today that they've already deployed AI, but they do not have a data processing agreement or a DPA in place, what do they need to do first?
3 things. Have clarity about all the AI tools that are being used in their company, right? So an inventory of every AI tool is a must. And it's okay, be real with you, whether it's been sanctioned or not. Have clarity about that. Identify the type of data that touches, those tools, and those who do not have, data contract, like you mentioned, Sophia. And then pause any tool handling sensitive data, like Franck was talking about. Sensitive data is very, very sensitive, right? Even if you are below that thresholds, it's always good to start with the right habits from the very beginning, and then it becomes natural, right? So those are the 3 things I will talk about. The cost of not doing anything is really expensive.
Right. And, I think as I listen to all 3 of you speak, I am struck by our need to really upgrade the understanding of what it means to do business, and thinking about what we share, how we work in completely different ways, right? So as we close, and before we go to the Q&A, I would like to ask all 3 of you, what is just 1 or 2 practical takeaways that come to mind for our audience of mostly small business owners here today? And keep in mind that most of us, 56%, don't know where to start with AI and implementing it. So maybe you could answer it from that standpoint.
Who should start, Sophia?
Yes, from Giaoui, why don't you start?
All right. So if there were only one point, it would be change management. We all have heard those horror stories saying, AI will replace my job, I'm losing my job, so I should resist, etc. And that is actually a big chunk of the resistance we see, particularly in the large companies. But even in smaller companies, you may resist for yourself. And I want to assure you that the experience we have is that AI is not eliminating the job, at least not for the foreseeable future. If anything, it is enhancing the current job. And I want to give you an example, which is in my own company. I remember about 1 year ago, we had posted ad to recruit engineers. And of course, we eventually had many applications and engineers, but I had also an application of someone who had absolutely no engineering background. And this guy was obviously very daring and smart. I wanted to interview him. And I said, but why did you apply? Because you are not an engineer, you don't know how to code, right? He said, yes, but I want to demonstrate to you that I know enough to do coding as much or even better as an engineer. So, of course, I did not recruit him as an engineer, but I created a position which is marketing. And this guy now is fully automating our marketing stream with AI. So we have created a job with AI, not reduced a job.
I love that. Yes, there is a transition, isn't there, taking place. Mathilde Viavet, let us know what you think, where people need to start when they don't know how.
Yeah, my advice, my two takeaways. One is get started. If you don't know where to start, ask AI where to start. That's what I did. So it's going to tell you. I discovered AI, like Python can access your spreadsheets if you invite it in a certain way. Half of the things I did, I had no idea existed. And I know you have two type of people who interact with AI. You have people who are directing AI exactly what they want. And you have the people who are basically bringing a problem and asking AI how to solve it. Well, I'm usually the first type with a very organized paragraph of all the things I need to put in those reports. But why don't you be the second one and say, hey, I have all of those tasks. Can you rank me the ones you think I can gain the most time out of if I were to automate them? That's the first screening you can ask AI to do for you without sensitive data. And then second one is like, okay, what's a technical solution? And I'm sure even ChatGPT can benchmark Claude and his own GPT and other tools to see how you can do. So get started, just get on your phone and ask questions right away. And the second thing I learned is about confusion. So as Frank mentioned, you need clean data to teach models. And this is true when you start to do predictive AI. But for us, sometimes it doesn't work if we don't have clean data, but we have less of a requirement. But I would say if you want to automate a workflow, you at least need to agree on the workflow. And that's interesting because sometimes we have different idea of how this workflow should be done. So before automating, there is a little pause to just reflect that workflow and see if there is, even like in the design of the workflow, a better way before going to the technical automation. So I've learned that too. It's better to align before automating.
Yeah. Thank you. And Franck Nanier, we'll turn to you and then we'll go to Q&A.
Yeah. So I think we all agree on one thing. We're going back to the basics, right? Have an idea of what you want to use AI for, right? I think that's what Mathilde was saying. In order for you to design the right workflow, you need to know what you're after, right? But also, the cost of not getting into AI is way too expensive. You got to try. You have to try. And you have those who are enthusiastic about it or even neutral, and it's not going to be that difficult. And then you have the other ones who are very reluctant for very good reasons or not. But you cannot afford to stay in the back of the classroom. You have to try. But once you do that, start from the very beginning doing AI governance. It will feel like work initially, but it will pay exponential dividend. This is the reason why you're going to be ahead of the curve. and you're going to continue to create amazing things that were not even possible before. I want to end with those who are a little skeptical. When you ask AI to do something for you, you can also ask AI to demonstrate to you why this is the right way.
Wow.
This is how you actually gain control about this entire thing, and you start asking questions, because AI is not ready to be on autopilot. It's not true. It needs you, and it's going to make your life better.
Thank you for that. So audience, I want to open up the Q&A to all of you to interact with our panelists. And if you have a question for a specific panelist, please specify in the Q&A, in your question, who that question is for. So before I turn there, Mathilde, I'm thinking about, there are many companies, and I talked about, all of those stats in my introduction, many companies who are experimenting with AI, but few that are running it in production. Maybe in some industries like pharma, they're doing that, and they've been doing that for a long time. What's the biggest lesson you've learned from deploying AI in a real operational environment?
Yeah, thanks for bringing this up. I really like how Frank put it earlier. Half is change management, and the second half is like technology development. So for me, I don't think I had an issue with getting the buy-in to build a demo. But once the demo worked, basically what happened is there was a former team member who was doing those reports over the weekend manually and spending 2 days on it. And eventually he graduated, so went to another company, and I got this task on my shoulders, So you kind of need to have a kick to deploy those tools. But when it was working, it's interesting because you need to kind of scale it. And my scaling was the second half of this journey. I did not think too much about, and I designed from the beginning so we would not have data governance issues, but it's about scaling it to someone else. And that's where the interpersonal relationship on how they are using those tools, which is very simple Python interference in this case, really struck me, because some people, they're like, oh, great, we're going to use only half hour and I'm going to contribute to the report. And they are so much buy-in from especially this young generation coming out of school. And then you have people, I would say the prior generation, maybe more my generation, that are more skeptical. And at the end, it's convincing those and maybe taking the time to show them, explain them, oh, how is it doing what it's doing? Why is it doing how it's doing? So I was not expecting so much, buy-in. It's almost, you have to convince them to use the tool, even if it's already working. So that's, for me, the deployment journey that I did not see before it happened.
Thank you. Thank you. So one of our audience members has a question. This is from Nick, and he says, how can AI be used by students at the undergraduate or graduate level for their research? And I'm going to leave it open to all three of you to decide who wants to take it.
Well, I can start if you wish, Sophia. So that's an interesting question, because sometimes some professors would tell you not to use AI for their own reasons, right? And I don't advise any student to start with AI first, because you need to learn by yourself. But I like the idea that you work with a companion, and this companion is called AI. You can have a human intelligence as a roommate, but you can have also artificial intelligence. So what about this scenario? When you are developing an assignment or an essay, why don't you try to write just the workflow, the equivalent of the workflow, which is the storyline? What is the main idea you want to bring? Then you develop it with the AI, and then you review it and you polish it. Don't start with the AI first, because otherwise you become lazy, and it's very easy to become intellectually lazy. There are some very good research about that. But once you have your own opinion, then you can test it and polish it with AI.
Thank you. Yes. And I want to go to Joe's question now. Franck Nanier, I saw that you answered this question, but maybe you can expand on it for the audience. So Joe's question is this: what are the low-hanging fruit for time savings with AI in business and life?
No, absolutely. We're going back to the basics. I think we are attached to it, right? Like Frank and Mathilde has reiterated, it's either you're trying to automate something or you're trying to get some help to make better decisions, right? And I picked that example, reading the fine prints of a loan, those contracts where sometimes you even apply for a job and you have they ask you to sign some type of clause. Most people do not read those. They do not, to be honest. You can now copy and paste an entire book and feed it into AI, and it's going to give you some clues. This is important to understand. It's not ready for being on autopilot yet, and that feeds into Frank's, feedback. You cannot be intellectually lazy. You're going to have to read those clues and form an idea for yourself the same way you're going to be careful about what's the result of reading those fine prints of a contract you're signing will be about, because your money or anything else is, attached to it. So those are the things I can come up with very quickly like that. And of course, it gets more interesting. I mean, you could be working on multiple projects, for example, and the timelines are slipping. You can ask AI to create a report on the fly. It will be done in 2 minutes and give you exactly the information you need to keep in mind every single morning. No human being can do that.
That's true.
So those are the examples.
Yeah, thank you. So one more question from our audience. This is from Ruth. I'm going to open this up to any panelist who wants to answer it. How do you see AI changing the way companies approach cross-border business development, particularly in industries like manufacturing or healthcare, where regulatory environments vary between countries like France and the United States?
Yeah. So I can start. If you want, Mathilde, you can go ahead also.
Yeah, I just maybe had a quick comment about this one. I think there is already a lot of interaction existing and complexity for companies who are, I can at least speak to the solar industry, who are having a part of their supply chain in Asia and the other ones in other countries where they are usually selling the products. And we have new tariff laws as well that needs to be followed, and understanding how all of that regulatory environment impact this supply chain and the operation of those larger manufacturers is actually interesting. But it's something that was done before AI. So there are some experts. My true belief, and I think we didn't get to that stage of AI yet, is the agentic AI. So I believe agentic AI is going to be autonomous and is going to be the autopilot for certain tasks that are defined. And that's going to be helpful to have maybe one agent that's specialized in a certain areas across the world talking to another agents with another area, because then you can basically have experts on a topic. But it's not going to replace. It's a little bit similar to what we are already doing with having an expert on regulation in France talking to an expert on regulation in the US about solar supply chain. So it's the same, but it might be automated in a certain way based on given data in the future. So for me, I see more like the next agentic AI, so the third development of AI, helping with that. But Frank, feel free to add some to that.
Yeah, I can quickly add that on healthcare, it's an industry I know a little bit. You have major regulatory differences between the US and Europe. And of course, the FDA process is not exactly, or the equivalent of the FDA process is not exactly the same in Europe. It's even different country by country. It's not the same between the UK and France. So using AI will help you at least avoid the major pitfalls. I would still strongly suggest you to take someone who is specialized lawyer to assist you. But the question is, even within the US, you have many different regulations between, let's say, California on HIPAA, Health Information Protection Act, and the rest of the country. And one of the good ways some of the manufacturers have found is just to comply to the strictest rules or the highest standards, which very often is California, now Colorado also. So I'm mentioning Colorado because they have just issued a very tight regulation on insurance. New York also is very advanced.
Thank you for that. Wow, all three panelists, I want to genuinely thank you for joining us in this conversation. I learned so much from you, and I am betting that our audience did as well. So thank you so much. Thank you, audience, for your engagement in this event. This concludes our panel on AI. And I want to just remind you to join us for upcoming events on international business and networking through the French American Chamber of Commerce. Go to rmfacc.org for upcoming announcements. Have a wonderful afternoon and see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.